Tonight, a general badly exposed through rigorous cross-examination. The assessment of President Akufo-Addo's legal team after almost 6 hours of subjecting the NDC's Johnson Asiedu Nketia to questions and requiring him to calculate votes.
Exposed. If your case is bad, even the most skillful general will be exposed at cross-examination.
John Mahamas' lawyers disagree, but the questioning posed by a member of panel, Justice Yawapo, remains outstanding. How many votes Mr. Mahama obtained from his own coalition?
My Lord, I haven't brought that figure to court.
Okay. From your own calculations, what were the valid votes cast in favor of the petitioner, to your knowledge?
My Lord, when we discovered this discrepancy, it was difficult to even know which figures are.
You don't know. You just answer. You don't know.
I don't have them here.
That's coming up on Top Story, brought to you by Gasem, the nation builder. Vodafone, the future is exciting, ready. And Bell Aqua Mineral Water, quench your thirst. And tonight on Top Story, President Akufo-Addo's lawyers today subjected NDC General Secretary Johnson Asiedu Nketia to hours of questioning. Proceedings commenced at 9:30 a.m. when Mr. Nketia entered the box again, but ended after 2 p.m. with a 30-minute break in between. Mr. Nketia is 2020 NDC presidential candidate John Dramani Mahama's witness in a case seeking to set aside the election results as announced by EC chairperson Jean Mensah. Lead counsel for President Akufo-Addo, Akoto Ampawu, centered his cross-examination mainly on calculating the total valid votes cast from the results declared by the EC and asking whether or not Nana Akufo-Addo got more than 50% of the votes cast. Here's a bit of what transpired.
Period after declaration.
Now, it is no secret that interspersed between these press conferences, the NDC, under your direction, had organized several demonstrations in Accra, stating that the petitioner had won the election and warning the first respondent not to subvert the will of the people.
My Lord, the NDC had organized several demonstrations with 3 main objectives. One,
please, I've not asked you
the killing of innocent voters at polling stations by security officers. And nothing seemed to be happening. The NDC made the other purpose of the press conference.
Please, I have not asked you the purpose, so answer my question. Please, and don't be taking instructions from lawyers on this side. Please.
Please, let's observe. Please, Deacon, please.
My Lord, I know what I'm talking about.
We are closer to them than you. We've not witnessed anything. Please.
Please answer my question, and don't. You had your opportunity to write your witness statement. So now you answer the questions.
I'm asking the question again, and I answer according to my ability and what I consider to be the answer to the question.
I'm saying that interspersed between these press conferences,
yes,
the NDC organized a series of demonstrations, the object of which was to...
Team is loaded. You see, it is double barrel. Can't you break them?
Organize a number of demonstrations. Is that so?
Yes, we did.
And one of the clear objectives of these demonstrations was that the petitioner had won the elections and the EC should not subvert the will of the people.
My Lord, the objective that relates to the presidential elections was that the results as declared were flawed. And the commission itself has accepted that the results were flawed, and that's why they kept changing the figures.
So you admit that you said that the results were flawed?
Yes.
Who, in your view, won the results? The elections?
My Lord, we are not interested in winning or losing a flawed election.
Very well.
We want the election, we want to be winners of an election that is credible.
So, court correspondent Joseph Akable joins me in studio with more. Joseph, welcome back. So, how crucial is this issue of the valid votes in this case, and can you tell us why it did dominate the discussion for so long?
In fact, all sides in the case consider it to be very important. The Electoral Commission chairperson in a declaration did mention 13.4 million as the total valid vote cast. The NDC contends that the petitioner for that matter says if you use that 13.4 million to calculate the votes as were declared on that same day, it will mean that none of the candidates who contested the election had more than 50% of the votes cast. The MPP and the EC for that matter say that 13.1 is the actual figure, because when you add the votes that the EC chairperson assigned to each of the candidates, it will lead to a conclusion that indeed it's 13.1, that is the figure. And so what each side have been trying to do in the course of the cross-examination is to suggest to Mr. Nketia that indeed the right figure is the 13.1, and that's what they got him to try and calculate all throughout proceedings.
Your ground B is founded on an alleged violation of Article 2.3 and Article 296 of the Constitution. Now, I put it to you that you have not produced any substantial evidence that these alleged violations, even if true, affected the actual vote obtained by the candidate. You have led no evidence to show that those violations had an effect on the actual votes that second respondent obtained and the actual vote that the petitioner obtained.
I disagree.
Mr. Nketia, I'm putting it to you that your petition, your petitioner's petition, shows no reasonable course of action. And I'm putting it to you further that the petitioner is not entitled to any of the relief that he seeks. And you have no case worthy of hearing before this court. My Lord, I'm done.
So that's how cross-examination by the second respondent of General Secretary Johnson Asiedu Nketia ended today, Joseph. But the panel had some questions as well.
A member of the panel, Justice Yapo, asked 3 critical questions on behalf of the justices relating to trying to find out from Mr. Asiedu Nketia whether he's aware the petitioner has carried out any collation and has come up with figures relating to the total valid votes cast, relating to the total votes obtained by Mr. Mahamas himself, and the votes also obtained by Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the second respondent.
General, I know that when you purchase a pen drive, it is empty. And the data on any pen drive is generated by someone. So the pen drive that you attached to the hard copy and exhibited as Exhibit F, who generated or placed the data on it? Because when you were asked, you said you don't know what was on it. Who generated the data on the pen drive?
My Lord, as I said, honestly, I hadn't seen the pen drive and its contents till today. And I was relying on the hard copies.
But
the evidence is gathered by our Elections Directorate and the Legal Directorate.
So they gave it to you and you exhibited it as part of your evidence?
No, I did not exhibit that document.
As part of the petition, he did not exhibit it. He made it quite clear.
So he swore on oath that it's for him, and he brought it to us.
He exhibited it. So I want to find out who generated it. So it means your election generated it and gave it to you and you exhibited it without seeing it.
I read all the hard copies of the document because of the time pressure. I was discovering this thing today. Okay, so that's why I indicated that I haven't seen it.
Then I want to be very clear on these issues too. Very, very important to me. Now, in all the figures that were mentioned as the valid vote cast and all those things, you were saying if the figures were correct, and that there were inconsistencies in the figures, I want to ask you, now, in your own calculation, what were the total valid votes cast in the presidential elections on 7th December 2020? In your own calculations.
My Lord, those calculations are reserved for a meeting for us to reconcile the figures because the first respondent herself keeps changing the figures. And so it says, when you bring your...
Excuse me, Mr. Look at here. Help the court. You see, when you started giving evidence, you said you had all representatives across the 275 constituencies. You said you put agents as, to use the, yes, and they were to, collect the figures. You said it. Then he's asking you that from that, what figure did you get? You.
My Lord, I haven't brought that figure to court.
Okay. Then, from your own calculations, what were the valid votes cast in favor of the petitioner, to your knowledge?
My Lord, when we discovered this discrepancy, it was difficult to even know which figures are.
You don't know, you just answer. You don't know.
I don't have them here.
Okay, then the last one. What figures from your own calculations did the second respondent get as the total valid votes cast in his favor?
My Lord, I don't have those figures here.
Thank you.
That's Justice Yawapo there also asking the General Secretary, Johnson Asiedu Nketia, some questions. But you tried posing this same question to the NDC's legal team. Joseph, what did you get?
And so first, related to the pen drive, Marietta Brea-Piopon explains, a member of the legal team explains that the pen drive, in terms of the data put on it, were collated by various team members, and Mr. Asiedu Nketia was exposed to the specifics, a hard copy of it, and so that's how come we are not seeing the contents of the pen drive. I asked the direct question about the alleged vote padding, and because Mr. Asiedu Nketia had constantly said it was a sample of, I was trying to find out what is the total figure that they have come to, and why are they not seeking to annul those votes instead of just saying they are presenting a sample. Her response was that the decision that they took was to challenge the December 9 declaration.
Okay.
According to President Akufo-Addo's legal team, Mr. Asiedu Nketia, per these responses, has been badly exposed.
We are of the view that it's been a good day in court, and that today the big word is exposed. Exposed. You'll notice that counsel on our side spent a lot of time exposing the inconsistencies and sometimes even outright falsehoods that have been put out by the petitioner and the witness who was in the witness box today. So when you juxtapose the earlier claims of we won now to what they are saying in the witness box about they don't know who won, when you juxtapose that to some of the tapes we played about claims of 51% on their side, now to claims that they did not even bring numbers to court, if you juxtapose that between their petition that talks about vote padding of a certain number and now a claim that it's only samples of that number, one of the first things that counsel on our side sought to do today was to expose the inconsistencies and sometimes outright falsehoods that have been peddled by the petitioner and the witness who was in the witness box today. We're of the view that it's been a good day in court. You saw the lack of candor when on the soft copy on the pen drive, they had made notes that they observed what they call padding, both for the MPP and the NDC. Yet they had claimed that there was a deliberate attempt to steal this election for the MPP. And now in their witness statements, they sought to delete those ones out. And then when it was put to our very good friend, the general, he now said he was not responsible for the pen drive, etc. So that exposure of the lack of candor is also one of the things that our counsel sought to do. In conclusion for us today, our view is that if your case is bad, even the most skillful general will be exposed at cross-examination. And that's what we believe has happened.
So that's a member of the legal team of the President Akufo-Addo, the second respondent in this case. But at this point, let me bring in members of the legal team of the two sides. We have Eduji Kojo Tamaklo. He's a member of the legal team for the petitioner, John Dramani Mahama. And of course, we have Nana Boakye Nanabi, also a member of the legal team of the President Akufo-Addo. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time here on Top Story. So I'll start with you, Eduji. I would first want to find out, did your witness represent you well, you'd say?
Emefa, good evening, and good evening to your listeners and viewers. Just to answer your question, we are particularly impressed with the performance of our witness, the General Secretary, General Mosito Johnson Asiedu Nketia.
Well, there were some concerns, at least for us viewers, the laypersons. If I'm delving into the matters of law that we shouldn't go into, I'm sure you'll feel free to let me know. But I'm wondering how a witness will be prepared and not know content, for instance, of a pen drive that came out strongly. How do we explain away that one?
There's nothing to explain away here. The General Secretary made it clear that the content of the pen drive was printed, and so there was a hard copy attached. What is there to be explained away?
The concern is that it goes to say that your witness was not adequately prepared.
No, there's no issue about it. You notice that there was a deliberate attempt by the lawyers for the second respondent to introduce the contents of the pen drive. And he made it abundantly clear that the content of that pen drive was into hard copy for him. And hard copy, no question was asked about it. In any case, the information that was extracted from the hard copy again proved our case. That is to say, it has been established during the cross-examination by lawyers for second respondent that the Electoral Commission shared votes. Now, if you have an Electoral Commission that has the capacity to share votes, then you should be worried. Because it is an election. It is not a selection. If it's a selection, then someone can sit somewhere and cook up figures or manufacture figures and just do distribution. He looks at you, Emefa, and then he say, you take 10. And then looks at maybe Eduji and say, I'll give you 5. Depending on how your face looks like. That is not the work of an Electoral Commission. And so for me, I felt that it was an own goal that the lawyer for the second respondent scored. Because the petitioner is simply saying that the election 2020 is deeply flawed. Then you come to court and say, oh yes, you know what happened was that, yes, they were pardoned and that you got some, I got some. Seriously?
Well, seriously? So you disagree with the assertion of the NPP, the president's legal team that your witness was badly exposed?
If the NPP, if the NPP, okay, and their lawyers sit back, that today, under cross-examination, and you see in cross-examination for a lawyer, you do two essential things. You put your story across, you discredit the case of your opponent or your adversary. In this case, the case of the petitioner is that the election was conducted in a flawed manner. Now, in putting your case as representing the second respondent, what did you do? You say he had introduced a piece of evidence on a pen drive. On that piece of evidence suggests that votes were padded. That is, in ordinary language, they've stolen the vote and given. Then now you come to court to say that, they gave me some and gave you two some. And so let's take it like that. Does it not rather go to establish the case of the petitioner that in fact the elections were flawed?
But talking about own goal, for instance, it appears that today when the witness mounted the box, the goalpost was actually being shifted. I'll come to you on that. That's the concern that has been raised. But I'll get to you on that. But let me bring in Nana Boache, for instance, Mr. Boache. So this issue about padding, it appears that from the cross-examination, listening and watching what happened, it appears you may have conceded that there was actually padding, but in the favor of the NDC.
Emefa, thank you very much and good evening. I mean, clearly, my senior Edgy Tamaklo did not have a very good day in court today. And you see, that is the more reason why he's overemphasizing on the vote pardon and then the wrong aggregation of vote. Now, what we were seeking to put across is that number one, in the petition of the petitioner, he put out a certain number. The number was 5,662. And then, in the witness statement of Mr. Esiedun Ketia, another figure was churned out, which is 4,693. So what Mr. Akutampa or lawyer Akutampa wanted to put across was that, first of all, there are even inconsistencies in the said vote pardon that you are overemphasizing. That is number one. And then number two, again, Mr. Akutampa wanted to say that in any case, if you are saying that the Electoral Commission, assuming without admitting that there were instances of vote pardon, it was not in favor of the second respondent, as you want to put across. But these irregularities cut across. And then the third point, which is even the most essential point in this whole argument, is that, okay, if you are talking about vote pardon, again, assuming without admitting, because in every election, you have irregularities. In every elections, you have irregularities. But the irregularities, would it materially affect the outcome of the elections? So the third point Mr. Kutampa wanted to put across was that if you even subtract the 5,662 from the over 500,000 vote difference between the second respondent and the petitioner, the votes will still not affect the outcome of the elections. So I'm even surprised why they even want to twist it. These were the three issues Mr. Kotampa wanted to put across.
Well,
but let me say that today, Justice Emefa Apawu summarized everything, exposed badly the witness in the witness box. Number one, your own evidence annexed to your witness statement, you are not even aware of the content of the pen drive. That is the more reason why Judge Apawu said that when you buy a pen drive, it's empty. You have to generate the data on it. So who generated the data? Then General Mosquito says, I don't know. Second question, okay, you have also told the whole world that you have collected your own resource.
But I heard him. I heard him mention. I heard him mention. He didn't say he didn't know who generated that content. I'm not sure that's what he said.
Computation. What did the petitioner get? I don't know. Okay, again, in your own computation, what was the total number of valid votes? My lord, I don't know. Okay, in your own computation, what did the second respondent get? My lord, I don't know. So it appears that they don't have any evidence, and they are just wasting our time.
Is that the case, Eduji? Do you agree? Because this issue has come up constantly. There appears that there were some inconsistencies, and at some point, people still wondering what exactly then are we seeking? Because anytime we ask about the collated results from your side, it appears there's no response to that.
First of all, I'm really it's quite interesting that today my friend on the other side will be, launching on a question asked by a judge. The reason why he's a judge is that the matter between the two parties is adversarial. And so he's not supposed to, quote unquote, descend into the arena. His is to watch the two parties. First of all, with the greatest respect, the court has set down 5 issues for trial. The questions from my lord, which of them relates or answers any of the 5 issues set down for trial?
Am I hearing you raising concerns about Justice Apawu's questions to your witness today?
What I'm saying is that there are 5 issues set down for trial. So the cross-examination is to help the court resolve. So if you go and ask, with the greatest respect, that how many votes the candidate Akufo-Addo get through NDC's coalition, how is that connected to resolving the issues? Emefa, how is that? Because the court itself, when they took the issues from us, went inside and came out with 5 issues. The misconception with respect is that people expect the 2013 election petition and how it played out from us. That is not our case. Emefa, that is not our case. Our case is that there is a body mandated under the laws of this country to participate and at the end of the day declare presidential election outcome. That body is called the Electoral Commission. The chairperson is the returning officer for presidential election because Ghana is deemed to be one constituency. Now, by reason of this, a declaration was made on the 9th. That declaration, the numbers used for that declaration, have subsequently been changed 3 times. That is the basis of our complaint before the Supreme Court. If our complaint were to be saying that, look, at the end of the day, substitute the elections or the result declared by Jane Mensah for the internal results collated by us, that is a different matter. In that case, you are permitted to ask us how much or how many of the votes have you collated yourself.
Okay.
This one, it is the conduct of the Electoral Commission. And that is why when the Supreme Court set down the 5 issues, nowhere in the 5 issues did they make an inquiry into how many votes did John Mahamas get through NDC coalition? How many votes did candidate Akufo-Addo get through NDC coalition? Was it part of the issues that set down for trial?
And that's where they say that this petition is being, held or heard on a different CI. That's what the lawyers say, Eduji. But I would have to, unfortunately,
the 2013 election petition.
Of course, unfortunately, I would have to let you go at this point. I'm so sorry. Okay. 30 seconds. Running now.
You see, in the 2013 petition, if you recall, the then candidate Akufo-Addo was actually asking for votes to be annulled, and that if those votes are annulled, he will be declared the president. That is essentially different from the current petition.
Okay. Eduji, we are grateful. We'll be following that tomorrow. We are grateful. We'll have to leave it here. Eduji Kojo Tamaklo. You also heard Nana Boachi. Eduji, both of them are members of the legal team for the petitioner and the second respondent. But let me bring in lawyer Samson Ladi Anyenene because earlier there were concerns that were raised by the justices of the Supreme Court, especially regarding the conduct of Mr. Frank Davis, one of the legal team members of the second respondent in the ongoing petition. This issue actually came up on Newsfile on Saturday, Samson. So what really were your thoughts when the Supreme Court gave that directive today?
Well, as one of my guests, Dennis Ajay Jumo had mentioned, I will be frank with you also, and I had admitted on the show when the other 2 panelists who speak for both, who speak for the petitioner and also for the first respondent, while they agreed that there was a concern to be addressed, you could see that some of them attempted to rationalize to some extent because they also may be guilty. I was clear when I pointed out clearly that what was going on breaches our code of ethics. Our professional code of ethics says that a practicing lawyer commits misconduct if he gives any interview to a representative of the press on any matter on which he is or has been engaged as a counsel. So that is a standing practice. And it's actually an issue that could lead to someone, and some people may have lost their licenses or may have been reprimanded or suffered some form of discipline by the General Legal Counsel Disciplinary Committee for this kind of conduct. And I think on my show, what we sought to stress was that to have people who have been at the top, particularly who have been to points where we can call they have been leaders of the bar, as in leaders of lawyers, lawyers groups, to give signals that doesn't bode well. There was the need for some attention and some concern. And I think that what they did today is absolutely right, except that I expected it to go even a little further, to go to, of course, they may not be monitoring and checking on whoever is making errant comments, particularly lawyers who are also involved in the case by way of being appointed as communicators by their various parties. So this is very good.
Okay.
And it will help to perhaps stop what has been going on. And if it is done further, they have the power to refer you to the General Legal Counsel Disciplinary Committee for disciplinary action. And one could lose their license, one could suffer a reprimand, one could be suspended for a number of months or even years from practicing the law until they have purged themselves, so to speak.
We're grateful, Samson Ladia, and we're hoping to get into what happens tomorrow when the Supreme Court resumes sittings for tomorrow, and one witness is down. But we'll be following that and bring you more as the court sits at 9:30 a.m. tomorrow. We'll be live here on Joy 99.7 FM, Joy News Channel, and affiliates across the country, plus myjoyonline.com. It's time now for News 9. That's it for Top Story, brought to you by Gasem, the nation builder, Vodafone. The future is exciting, ready, and Bill Aqua Mineral Water.